Real quick, we have a security consultant that our producer Emily Zink lined up for us, so he wants to talk about this truck stop thing. He'll give us a little bit more insight into that, so let's dial him up.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Yeah, the security guys, it's always interesting to hear their version.
It is, yeah. Yeah. It's great to get that perspective. And
Hello?
Hi, is this Stephen Kraus?
Speaking.
Hi, Stephen. This is Dooner with FreightWaves. I'm here with Zach Strickland and Kevin Hill. We were talking about this truckstop.com outage, which they, at the moment, are calling a malware attack. So Emily told us you had some insight on this and ransomware and that kind of thing in general. So what's up?
Hey, well, let's talk about it. What have they said so far? Just that it's malware?
Yeah, they haven't called it ransomware. They called it malware, but their entire their on-site server side is down. Their AWS is up.
Okay, yeah, and that may be normal if their AWS doesn't have any tiebacks to their on-site stuff. The biggest thing affecting people running their websites out of their on-site is it's usually on a network that is also connected to all the desktop PCs for the business. And so someone goes and clicks a bad link or gets a bad email, and they open it up. It pops something like a crypto locker, and it just then spreads through the network in a couple minutes and takes everything down. Now, and if they have an AWS site, that's probably not directly connected to their local stuff, so it would preserve them and probably at least keep their AWS stuff safe.
What do you do in a situation like this? Is it because I've heard like ransomware attacks are almost like kidnappings. The FBI says don't pay them. So what are you supposed to do when you're locked down? Because I know that most companies, when they actually talk to a consultant, they do end up paying these to get their drives restored and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a sensitive situation. I generally tell clients that get ransomware, what are they asking versus what is your total cost of business? For instance,
oh wow! I mean, think about that for a second, though. Think about how scary that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was a hospital out in California, and their whole hospital got hit by ransomware. And so what they ended up doing is they looked at the cost of paying the ransomware. They didn't have any backups. That's the key thing. None of these guys have backups. None of them have offline backups that are kept safe. That's really your only saving grace if you get ransomware.
Yeah.
So what happened in their case was they looked at the cost and they said, even if we pay, we're out of business. So they just ended up closing. They just said, you know what, we're out of business. That's the end.
Holy cow!
Whoa.
Well,
Yeah,
I've heard some of these ransomwares. Is this true that when they infect, they will actually look for financials within your system to see how much you can bear for them to ask?
So some of them do, some don't. It depends on most ransomware that you're going to see is going to be kind of simple stuff where they're just kind of basing it off of like, oh, this is how many machines I infected on your network. So they're just basing it off that. But some of the more advanced ransomware, it will actually look at the files that it's locked up. They'll look for like Excel spreadsheets. They'll look for keywords like quarterly reports, stuff like that, and they may try to identify.
Find that all over your stuff, Kevin.
I know, right?
Yeah, I mean, like anyone taking a hostage, they're going to kind of be like, how much do they actually have, or how big is their business? Because when the ransomware hits, it's usually not a person doing it; it's an infected bot somewhere on the internet that's spreading this stuff. And once you actually get infected, that's when a person actually becomes involved. They get an alert from the bot that lets them know, hey, I'm starting to see new activity from an infection, and it'll send it to a person, and then the person figures out what exactly they've caught.
Is the trucking industry especially susceptible? I know a lot of people are running these legacy systems. They just invested, because our industry can be a little bit behind at time, but they just invested 5-10 years ago in expensive on-site metal server farms, so they're not even prepared to move up to the cloud, which may be a little bit more secure. Does that leave a wide opening for these types of attacks?
Yeah, very much so. Because, I mean, a lot of these guys, the technology is changing trucking immensely. So many trucking firms are now tracking their trucks with IoT. They've got cellular modems on the truck so you can tell, hey, this load is is bound for this place. Oh, he's stopping for his 12-hour break. So that they can tell a customer, hey, yeah, we know exactly where your load is. We know exactly the temperature of if it's a refrigerated truck, we know the temperature. We can see like G-forces on the truck to figure out if it's braking hard or if they're having issues. So, yeah, a lot of these legacy trucking firms are being thrown into the 21st century where they're going from, we're just a trucking firm. We've got, paper contracts and we're doing everything, where customers are demanding trucking firms be much more connected to their drivers and their loads so that they can get more information on where loads are going, how long it's going to take to get there, whether the load is being subjected to anything. Whether the company is keeping their end of the bargain as far as like SLA service guarantees. So you're getting these trucking firms who have never touched big IT stuff other than having computers for doing email, and are all of a sudden building out whole data centers or renting space in colos to stand up all this infrastructure, and security doesn't really enter into it. And to be fair, it's not exclusive to the trucking industry. You've got companies that are just all of a sudden going, hey, we got to get on the web. We need to get servers. We need to get infrastructure. And security doesn't really come in as a question until the bitter end, where it's like, okay, we've got all this stuff. We've got a website, we've got tracking, we've got information, and suddenly they look at securing it, and it turns into what we call technical debt. We have all this stuff we stood up. We've got all this stuff we've built. What is the cost of securing it? They look at that and they go, well, do we really need to right now? And security becomes that thing like, well, we don't really want to spend to secure, because security's return on investment is you don't get anything back unless you actually get attacked. But in reality, they don't see that they're probably getting attacked every day. It's just they're not as successful at getting attacked.
So this is Kevin. I have a quick question. So what's the growth rate of malware and ransomware attacks, especially in private and governments as well, from say 2017, 2018, 2019? Do you have some ballpark numbers for that?
So off the top of my head, I mean, we've seen basically double. And that's just a rough number, because it's a quick earning industry. If you think of malware and crypto locker attacks and ransomware attacks as a company, they're just looking for quick wins, quick ways to make money. So in most cases, people are paying. So that's why you're seeing more and more of them, because there are companies who are going, it's just worth our time just to pay so we can get back in business and make money. And it works. So it's a lot like the mafia hitting you up saying, this is a nice trucking industry you got. Sure be a shame if something happened to it.
How hard is it to back up? So you mentioned doing backups, but so TruckStop is a live load board. How much more difficult and much of a challenge is that to do live backups of something, since you're constantly having new information added to your server?
Yeah, so that comes into a question of like how far back is acceptable. Like if I was going to say, hey, today you've lost everything, but how far back do your backups go? Like if you're backing up just weekly and getting good offsite backups that are only a week old, yeah, you've lost that data for the week, but what's the data that you still had a week ago worth to you? And in most cases, initially they're like, well, we don't have the stuff that's right away, the stuff that's inbound or outbound. But then they're like, oh, but all our records and all our other stuff that we need to rebuild what we're doing right now, we got that. So yeah, live backups might not be an option for live tracking stuff, but especially since with ransomware and stuff, you need to be doing like offline backups where you're taking like a snapshot or a full backup like once a week, and then disconnecting that from the rest of your network till the next time the backup needs to run. That's what it comes down to. The question being is, how much can you lose and still be okay?
Yeah, we used to have that at our old company. We had backups. We would purge every year and a half, 2 years, effectively. But yeah, that's a good point. Hey, this is Zach. I got a question. What are the odds that they're, somehow getting, what's the threat to the private information here? Are they potentially siphoning off any private numbers or anything like that?
Yeah, credit cards, names, social security, anything like that?
So yeah, that's the trick side in, let's say you pay. What did they learn? Because they know the key for the ransomware, so they can go through and look through anything that might contain PII, anything that might contain customer data, anything that might contain HR data. They can look through that, and that's kind of the flip side to what if you pay. Yeah, you might be back in business, but you're not out of the woods.
So
because now you actually have. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So how do you combat this? I mean, you mentioned how they're just getting more and more bold. They're doing this more often because they're basically getting away with it. What's the cure here? What's the final solution for kind of pushing back on ransomware guys?
Because he mentioned right, paying is just making it worse, but do you have any option other than to pay?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's some basic security practices that you can put into place. And a lot of this really isn't a technical solution. Like, you can buy firewalls, you can buy antivirus, you can buy all these technical solutions, but they're only as good as the people that manage them. And those solutions aren't going to stop, Jane in HR or Dave in a VP clicking an email that's phishing and downloading a file and trying to run it. There's a lot of basic just training that people need to understand. Hey, if you get an email from someone you don't know that's like asking you to open a file and you haven't talked to this person before, call them. Don't just open the file. If you're going to visit a site and the site is asking you to download stuff, verify that you actually need to download that to do anything with the site. A lot of these big infections are not a lack of technical, but it's just people downloading and clicking things. And a lot of companies don't implement like user accounts on their machines that don't have admin rights. Like, for instance, for a company I'm consulting for right now, we are removing all the admin rights from everyone who absolutely doesn't need it. The advantage being, if they get infected and a ransomware tries to run something on their machine, it's more likely it's going to go, oh, I don't have the rights to do that, and it might stop. Versus if, like, let's say, you go buy a computer at Dell, and you set it up on your network at work, that computer's probably giving you admin rights right off the bat. So if you download and run something on it on your corporate network, it's going to be able to do whatever it wants, and it's going to spread wherever it can find a connection to do it. And like you said, a lot of these trucking companies, if they do have IT infrastructure, it's very legacy. So older file sharing systems, which are very susceptible to CryptoLocker. A lot of the original CryptoLocker attacks took advantage of what's called SMB version 1, which is for file shares, like shared drives between computers. SMB version 1 doesn't have strong authentication. It allows basically anyone to read-write to it. So you download this CryptoLocker, it would automatically go look for shares that are connected to your computer and then start locking up all the files on that share. And then from there, would look for other computers that are connected to that share and lock their files up.
Is the cloud the definitive answer? One of our viewers want to know, Jermaine Walker, he wants to know if everything should just be moved to the cloud.
I mean, so here's the trick about the cloud. The cloud can do you a lot of good, but the cloud is also not going to implement those security practices for you. They might give you hints and tips. Like, for instance, you've seen a couple of those, like people who have moved to Amazon, AWS. You have what's called basically a bucket. It's like a database. So you can use that bucket to feed applications that are in the cloud. But Amazon doesn't tell you specifically how you need to set up those shares to secure them. And by default, they are totally open. So there's been a couple incidences where people just go search using a tool called Shodan, and you can find Amazon buckets that are unsecure, and they'll contain PII and stuff. It's really a matter of you've got to do the research and figure out what's best for you. For small companies, cloud may be the solution for you. But if you're a mid-sized trucking firm or you're a very large, like, national trucking firm, you may want a hybrid cloud solution where you're running your websites and everything up in the cloud, but you're keeping your databases local so that you can maintain control of those. Cloud can do a lot of good for you, but it really doesn't do anything that having a well-informed IT person on staff wouldn't be able to do for you locally. It can offset some costs, but the big issue is a lot of companies are just taking like their data center and saying, well, we're going to move to the cloud. But what they don't realize is the cloud is just someone else's computer. You move to the cloud, you've got to decide what is secure for you. They might tell you what you should do, but that's not going to stop you from not doing the best practices to make sure you're securing it.
Stephen, is IoT a really open entry point for a lot of people now? Is that only going to get worse? Is that an opening and attack vector?
Yeah, because the big issue with IoT, I'm sure you've seen what's going on with the Ring cameras, right?
Yeah.
The big trick with IoT is most IoT devices, a lot like anything, are developed and manufactured at low cost. So again, security is one of those things they're not really looking at until the bitter end. Like, okay, the product's ready to go to market. Now let's talk about security. And then once they start to look at all that tech debt to go back and secure things, they say, well, maybe we can just let it go to the field as is. And that results in a lot of issues. And the other thing is IoT devices tend to end up on networks where you've got a lot of other machines, like just desktops and servers, where they shouldn't have access to that. They should be on a separate network that can communicate between the two, but can't see those servers and desktops. So there's best practices using like VLANs, which are virtual networks, which let you segment off a physical network into separate networks, where you can control what information can go between those networks. But generally, when companies buy IoT, they just put it on the same network and say, well, it works, and we're just going to do it that way.
Hey, so how long do you think this potential attack could last? I mean, are we on the end phase of this? Can you sum it up for us and just give us a quick, what do you expect
as far as
with these guys?
Attack, what they're suffering?
And well, in terms of how long it's going to last,
until they pay it.
Yeah. When do you think the last day that they basically need to operate moving forward would be?
Yeah. So naturally right now, so naturally right now, they've probably brought in an IR firm to help them look at how did they get in, what can we do? So that IR firm is no doubt looking at their machines, it's looking at their logs to figure out what happened. That IR firm is probably going to tell them what their best path forward is. If they have enough cash on hand, the IR firm may just tell them to pay, because then they can, even if they don't trust the hardware, they can take that data, move it somewhere safe, and start rebuilding. If the IR firm can, if they get lucky and they have good backups, they may be back up in a day. If they're unlucky, it may be 2 to 3 days before they really get anything going, or they decide to just cut their losses and shift or save what they can. So I've seen it go as long as a week before things really start going back to normal, because there's going to be a lot of pieces to pick up. What happened? How did they get in? Who did what? What were we able to salvage? What things did we lose that we're never going to get back? So there's a lot of inventorying to go through.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Tyler Upchurch, he writes that truckstop.com has been in the midst of this malware attack since at least December 10th or a few days earlier, which is when he began receiving malware links and files emailed to him from email accounts that were spoofing an employee at Truckstop. Does that sound pretty likely in how these things occur?
Do you know if that's
Yeah. So yeah, when they hit a network, they're going to try to find any way to spread themselves somewhere else, because the more people they infect, the more money they get. We've seen firms where they'll get hit by a crypto locker attack. They'll go scrape people's mailboxes and they'll just start spoofing emails, or they'll even go look through like email threads, and they'll respond to one pretending to be a user, saying, "Hey, I'm following up on this email. Click this link. I'd like to finish this up or close the deal." And yes, spoofing becomes really common after a site's been hit. And if they've been down since the 10th, they're probably they're probably in the middle of finishing up their IR and trying to take inventory of what they can bring back online.
Yeah, they haven't been down
Well,
since the
no,
10th. I think he's saying that they at least something malicious started entering the system and doing that spoofing on the 10th. I don't think it really deployed itself until Thursday or Friday.
And it doesn't say what domain it came from, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if
so. It could be a separate attack.
It could be a separate. We get crazy emails every day,
yeah.
but they're not from FreightWaves.com. They're from.
It could be separate.
Yeah.
How many?
And that happens.
Is there? I guess to leave us to tie this all together. Is there an operating number of days or something where it becomes feasible? Like the longer you wait, obviously, the more it costs you on both ends. It costs you in customer experience. It costs you in financials and broken relationships, but it also probably is going to cost you more to the ransomware company as well. So, at what point do you advise people to just pay the piper?
Yeah, I mean, so if they get a proper IR team in there and the IR team isn't making much headway, I'd say once you hit 10 to 15 days, it's time to just start figuring out how much cash you can put aside and pay them off. I mean, it's not ideal. I will just caveat that. You should never pay these guys because there is no guarantee that you may get that data back. It's no different from, like you said, a hostage crisis.
Yeah.
You may pay the guy and you'll never get them back. You'll never see them again.
Except here, the hostage, after you pay him, might even stay and hide in your basement, right? Like they might open a gateway for themselves.
Yeah, that's the trick. Is that's the other half of if you pay them, you might get your business back. You might, but you have to assume this is the breach mindset. We try to educate users on the breach mindset. If someone will get in, they will get in, and what do you do once they're in? That's more how it's. You can talk about preventing them all day, but eventually someone will get in. What do you do once they're there? And with ransomware, it's really okay. You guys are here. And once you've paid that, what if they give you your data back? Great, but they're still there. Like, you got your data back, but they're still in your network. They still know everything about your network. You've got to scrub and start over with the data you got back from them. So even once you pay them, it's not just back to business as usual. You've now got to basically rebuild your infrastructure, re-image all your machines, and start over. And hopefully the IR company you've hired has started helping you figure out that path forward. Because that's one of the things they're going to do is they're going to be like, okay, we got your data back, or we've lost all your data. Let's start helping you get stable again. It's like someone coming in from a car accident and okay, you're stable in the hospital now, but now you got to heal.
Yeah. Stephen Kraus, if people want to learn more, protect themselves moving into 2020, how do they reach out to you and your organization?
So you can reach out to me at krausengineering@gmail.com. There's a bunch of really good resource sites online for doing for kind of following the security field. Krebs on Security is a good one. There's you can search for best security practices. A lot of this stuff, the nice thing about the security field is most of our information is open source. We are sharing it with everyone. We want everyone to know about it. And a lot of this stuff is it's like best practices stuff. Just, hey, you need to protect yourself by doing X, Y, and Z. And while you can go hire a company to help you do that, a lot of this is just personal and employee education stuff, like teaching them about phishing emails, teaching them about what to look for when on a website, teaching them about what files they should and shouldn't open, stuff like that.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time today. Take care.
It's no problem, guys. Hopefully they'll be back up soon. I hope everything goes well with them.
All right. Happy holidays. Goodbye.